My name is Sammy Jo Jones and this is my assignment 3 on blood vessels for anatomy. Arteries. Arteries are blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart and carries oxygenated blood. Tunica external. This is a strong outer layer of arteries. This then consists of connective tissues, collagen and elastic fibers. Tunica media, this is the middle layer of the arteries and it consists of smooth muscle and elastic fibers. This layer is thicker in the arteries than in the veins. Tunica intima, sorry if I said that wrong, this is the thinner inner layer of the artery and so is in direct contact with the blood that is flowing through the artery. This part of the artery consists of elastic membrane, smooth endothelial cells. The hollow centre of the artery that the blood flows through is called the lumen. Next we're going to go on to the arterioles. Arteriole is a small branch of an artery. That leads to a capillary. The oxygenated oxyhemoglobin, makes the blood in arterioles and arteries look bright red. Vasoconstriction occurs when the arterioles contract, decreasing blood flow to the tissues. Example of this is when you turn pale in a state of fear. Vasodilation occurs when the arterioles dilate, increasing blood flow, sorry if I said that wrong, to the tissues. An example of this is blushing in a state of nervousness. Capillaries. Capillaries, as arteries branch and divide into arterioles and continue to reduce in size as they reach the muscle, they become capillaries. However, unlike veins and arteries, their main function is not transporting blood. They are specially designed to allow movement of substances, mainly gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, into and out of the capillary. The structure of the capillaries have a thin wall which allows substances to move through the wall with ease. Capillaries are very, very small, measuring at 5 to 10 micrometers in width. However, the cross-sectional area capillaries within an average sized muscle would be larger than that of the aorta. This then allows a fast and effective transfer of oxygen, carrying red blood cells to site where they are needed. Next we're on the venule, or the venules. A venule is a small blood vessel in the microcirculation that allows deoxygenated blood to then return from the capillary beds to make the blood vessels larger, called veins. Venules have low blood pressure in them. The venules join from the veins. Let's go on the veins. As you can see, a very detailed diagram. Veins are blood vessels which carry deoxygenated blood. This means that there are very low levels of oxygen throughout the blood. The structure of the veins is similar to that of the arteries. Again, consists of 3 layers. Next we'll go on to the blood. Blood has many functions, including transportation of nutrients around the body, maintaining homeostasis, sorry if I said that wrong, and the immune system. It is made up of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. First we'll go on red blood cells. As you see, the top is kind of cut off, so that says biconcave shape. It has that sort of shape. Red blood cells have a biconcave shape, as I just said, which increases the surface area and then makes the diffusion of oxygen into and out of the blood of the cell much easier. As you see, it has no nucleus, which means there is more room for hemoglobin in the cytoplasm, but it can only live for about 4 months. Next we're going on to the old red blood cells. They are broken down in the liver, spleen and bone marrow. Some of the iron from the hemoglobin is stored and then used for making new hemoglobin, and some of it is then turned into a pile of pigment and extracted. Old red blood, just said that. I'm so sorry for that. White blood cells. White blood cells are bigger than red blood cells. There are a number of types of white blood cells, although the function of all of them is to help fight disease and infection. They typically have a lifespan of only a few days. There are only 5 to 10,000 white blood cells per microliter of blood. Next we're on the platelets. Platelets are disc-shaped cell fragments which are involved in clotting blood as well as to prevent the excess loss of body fluids. If one of your body cell vessels gets damaged, like if you cut your hand and it starts bleeding, then this sends a signal that gets picked up by the platelets, and then the platelets rush to where it is bleeding, damaged, and then form a plug, which is a clot, which then repairs damage to the body part. Next is plasma. This is a liquid called plasma, and it makes up about half of the content of blood. Plasma contains proteins that help with blood clots, transport substances through the blood, and perform other functions. Blood plasma also contains glucose and dissolved nutrients. Next we're going to go on to the respiratory system. The journey of air from outside to the alveoli. First the air goes into the nose, then the air goes through the nasal cavity, then the air travels down to the pharynx and goes down to the larynx. Air then goes down to the trachea, which then after that, air goes down to the bronchi. Then the air passes down to the small light branches of the bronchioles. Lastly, the air then gets to small air sacs called alveoli. And that is where gaseous exchange happens between oxygen and carbon dioxide. The function. You have upper and lower respiratory tract. Upper, the respiratory system, which includes air passages, pulmonary vessels, and the lungs and breathing muscles, aids the body in the exchange of gases between the air and blood, and between the blood and the body's billions of cells. Most of the organs of the respiratory system help to distribute air, but only the tiny grape-like alveoli and the alveolar ducts are responsible for actual gaseous exchange. The upper and lower respiratory tract. The upper is the nasal cavity, which is inside the nose. A sticky mucous membrane lining the nasal cavity traps dust particles and tiny hairs that help it trap it, called cilia. Sinuses. These air-filled spaces alongside the nose help make the skull lighter, the cranium lighter. Pharynx. Both food and air pass through the pharynx. before reaching their appropriate destinations. The larynx is essential to human speech. The lower part is the trachea, located just below the larynx. Just below the larynx, the trachea is the main airway to the lungs. Then the lungs, together the lungs form one of the body's largest organs. They're responsible for providing oxygen to the capillaries and exhaling carbon dioxide. The bronchi branch from the trachea into the lungs and create the network of intricate passages that supply the lungs with air. Bronchioles come off the bronchi, which looks like little tubes coming off of the bronchi. The diaphragm is the main respiratory muscle that contracts and relaxes to allow air into the lungs. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing out is when we exhale, the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles relax and return to their resting positions. The diaphragm curves upwards and moves up. The diaphragm curves up and moves upwards, and so the intercostal moves the ribs downwards and in. Next is breathing in. When we inhale, the intercostal muscles between the ribs and the diaphragm contracts to expand the chest cavity. The diaphragm flattens and moves downwards. The intercostal muscles move the rib cage upwards and out. So if you take a big deep breath in, you can feel your lungs filling up with the air, your diaphragm is going down, and when you breathe out, your diaphragm's coming in and your lungs are shrinking. Here is my bibliography of where I found every bit of information and pictures. Thank you.